For more on the U.S. economic divide, I spoke to Arthur Dong. He's a teaching professor at the McDonough School of Business at Georgetown University, and I began by asking how budget shortfalls are expected to impact local communities.
If states do not get federal funding or a degree of fiscal stimulus from the federal government, layoffs are going to have to occur. States, governors, as well as city mayors are going to have to make really, really tough choices with regard to how they're going to pare back their budgets and who is going to get laid off. And so the impact of that will be immediately felt by local citizens who take for granted many of the services that are a part of their daily lives. But once those cutbacks start to take effect, you're going to see a very, very rapid rate of deterioration in terms of the provision of basic governmental services. And in an election year, this is going to be a real challenge. And I dare say that even for Republicans, they're going to have to think carefully as to whether or not they want to put states on a sort of a budget-restricted diet, because the consequences at the polls will be severe.
During the Great Recession, an estimated 300,000 school jobs were lost by the end of 2011. That naturally has a long-term impact on education.
Without a doubt. When you think about K-12 education in the United States, the provisions of services, a reduction in class size, all of these things will be compromised as teachers as well as staff are laid off from the respective school systems. Just think about special education and special needs children, the provision of lunch for those who have budgetary challenges and families who have budgetary challenges, as well as class size. If they start dismissing teachers, you're going to see class sizes start to expand. And so thus having an impact on the learning as well as the experience overall for K-12 students. And that's not even to mention the sort of massive number of state universities and state-sponsored universities who are highly reliant on educational funds to keep their operations going as well. And so therefore, you're going to see a significant impact at the state university levels as well across the board.
Some states, Idaho, North Dakota, Oklahoma, and Texas, have already taken measures to announce across-the-board cuts to their agencies, at least 5%. Florida slashing $1 billion in funding from education and social services, including affordable housing programs. Talk about some of the more drastic measures you've seen, and can we expect more of this?
Yeah, you can expect more of this as states respond to this sort of downfall in terms of their revenues. They're going to have to make adjustments necessary, absent the ability of the federal government to either to borrow additional funds from the federal government or to receive fiscal stimulus. And so you're going to see a cutback across the board. First, they're going to look for those things that perhaps are less essential, but you're going to see, let's say, greater potholes in the streets. Road repair is going to be deferred. The new roof that was supposed to be put on the high school building, high schools and hospitals will now have leaky roofs. Staff reductions across the board. And I dare say that once they start reducing the number of police as well as firemen and EMTs, you're going to have slower responses when you make that 911 call. So these are all going to be very, very difficult choices. And for many state governments who have already been, since the last Great Recession, been paring back in terms of their budgets and their staff, they're already running with a very thin staff as it is. These things will all be seen in terms of the average American receiving a lot less in terms of what they expect from governmental services.
So what should the federal government do? Obviously, Washington is also lacking behind in revenues as a result of COVID. Should it give states open checks?
Yeah, the one distinction I would make is this. States do not have monetary sovereignty. In other words, states cannot print money. Only the federal government in the United States has the authority via the U.S. Treasury to print money. And the $5 trillion plus of fiscal stimulus that was already injected into the U.S. economy to help shore up businesses as well as individual families on unemployment, we're going to see that same need also provided to local and state governments, because state governments cannot print money. And so as a result, the federal government is the only sort of lender of last choice that has the ability to shore up these local governments. And again, and if they fail to do that, the political consequences are too severe to even imagine.